Hello and welcome to How to Attract Abundance for Virgo in August 2024. I guess also for some Virgos, happy birthday. Happy Virgo birthday for you guys. Okay, so this reading is all about how to bolster, fortify, bolster and fortify your abundant energy. What does that mean to be abundant? It is meaning to have everything that you want, very much like the Nine of Cups, having your dreams come true, whatever that means for you. So you could be attracting an abundance of justice, an abundance of revenge, like whatever your sense of abundance is. And abundance is such a general word. So I'm aware of this phenomenon called like the 888 portal, right? And I don't know, is the 888 portal real? Are the months real? Is the word August real? Is it really 2024? Probably not. But, these are the numbers that we have come to associate with our reality. So even with astrology, I tell people, you may not have the right birth information. You may not have access to your birth information. You might have immigrated illegally and your real name is Angel and you're from Honduras, but you have to tell everybody that your name is Luis and that you're from Colombia because that's what your documents say. But that fake identity and the quote unquote fake identity or that fake astrology that you have access to, and still in one shape, form, or another is still your identity. So you may not technically be the sign that you're born under, but if you have to go out there and pretend to be this person, that might be a part of your astrology or might be a part of their astrology. So it still coalesces and still is valid. So that's Virgo. Okay, so how does Virgo attract abundance in August? Oh, and then there's this guy on TikTok, like Astrology with Ryan or something like that. Some like over the hill twink who's trying to like feel sexy by talking about astrology was like, oh, this 888 portal thing, like you're all delusional. I was like, girl, like we're people who track the stars to figure out our emotions. We talk to spirits and ghosts and deities. So I think for like a numerologer to become calling an astrologer delusional is just destructive and divisive within your own house. It's like starting a fire in your own house and not wanting your home to burn down. So he was going on this whole rant about how, everybody's delusional and it's not this time of abundance and Sirius A and Sirius B and the planets and yah. But my thing about numerology, especially, you take a tragedy like 9/11, right? People are like, oh, it was planned. They wanted to do it on 911. I don't know, something about the police or something, you know what I mean? Like it's a synchronistic number, means something in Islam. But, calendars are made by man. So was 9/11, did that really happen in September? Was that really the 11th day of, the ninth month or the supposed to be seventh month of the 2000th year? Probably not. Like the numerology is probably off, but that didn't stop the government or a terrorist organization from planning to perform some tragedy that day. So even if the 888 portal is fake and phony and doesn't exist in space, if I'm sitting here on the planet Earth and I'm like, oh, it's 888 portal, I'm going to go set this trash can on fire because it's 888 portal and that's what I'm doing today, then it has significance and it has power. But I think like his hubris was more recently, I think maybe last year or 2 years ago, I don't know, it was like the same day as that like Lahaina fire. And he was like, well, just because Lahaina caught on fire, that doesn't mean that 888 is this time of abundance. And I was like, well, it was definitely an abundance of fire. You don't think, you know what I mean? Like, just because it's abundance doesn't mean it's an abundance of jelly beans and butterflies. Like, sometimes it's an abundance of chaos or an abundance of tragedy or an abundance of dead bodies. It's like not always like the word abundance is looked as positive, but I think it's more positive or negative in terms of quantity. So it's like 888 might be a great abundant time for your money, hopefully. But I'm sure if you had life insurance policies or um, any type of insurance policy on when that fire happened, you're probably doing a little bit better than you were before. Um, and just because that's the only reported fire at that time doesn't mean there weren't like 10,000 kitchen fires between you and your best friends on the same day. You never know. And then people like withhold information, they try to lie by deceit, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of the astrologers on TikTok they're just like super fake and regurgitating whatever they heard from the last astrologer. Because even right now, all these people are popping up on TikTok talking about how, oh, we could tell that this was going to happen to Trump because of his midheaven and this positioning in Aries. And I was like, well, if that were the case, how come you didn't? I mean, like, maybe you don't want to warn Trump when he's about to get shot at. But I'm like, well, how come you didn't warn him? How come you didn't? I mean, I guess you can't be like, I feel like the president's going to get shot tomorrow in an astrology video. But I also think it's like super tacky to go around after the fact to be like, oh, well, anybody who knew astrology could see that this was going to happen. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there are people with the exact same positions in his chart that were not shot at and did not experience any type of harm that day. So they're all bullshit and delusional, and I'm smart. But so Virgo, the energy that I see that you're walking away from is that of the King of Pentacles. So the King of Swords. So you might think that you might have been thinking that you're the King of Swords, that you're the most logical, intelligent person running around calling people succubuses and things like that, only to look in the mirror and see your own thing and horns and see that you're the succubus, that you're a dirt mud sign, lowest ranking earth sign, trash heap, and not the King of Swords at all, because that's your Gemini counterpart. But then also we have here's the Five of Swords. So even your ego is based on a bunch of like lies and deceptions. It's I went to Puerto Rico when I was 8. I went to Colombia. I went here, and you get a lot of self-esteem from that, but it didn't happen. So then when you go back, or when someone offers to go back and you don't have your passport, or you don't know anything about the place and you don't know how to speak the language, it's just everything about you is suspect all of a sudden. Or you might have been going around telling people that you know karate and jujitsu even though you're like 300 pounds overweight, and somebody was foolish enough to believe you. I see like mostly you're just concerned about your mother, and I always my thing is like Virgos really care about they really care about the approval of their father. And the thing about like seeking the approval of your parents is that like most likely your parents were like scumbag pieces of shit, not out of any type of like divine curse, but just like how life is. Like if your parents didn't grow up teaching you how to farm, or teaching you about or teaching you anything, teaching you about astrology, a foreign language, how to be polite, how to anything, then there's no really use seeking their approval. And they might have a nice job. They might have a really nice job. They might make a lot of money and be very comfortable, but they could have lucked into that, or fell into that, or privileged their way into that. It doesn't mean that they have any type of intelligence or magical powers that are stronger than you. But you probably won't realize that until another 6,000 lifetimes after this. Because you don't want to be alone. So the hidden influence, or what I always say is abstracting, distracting your sense of abundance. It's like the seeking the approval of your mother or your father. But specifically in these cards, because I always, for Virgo, I'm always it's the father. But specifically in these cards, it's the mother. Especially if your mother is a water sign, like a Scorpio, Cancer, Pisces. Because you might be thinking she's really selfish and she's only focused on her own sorrow. But she can't see outside of that, and that's her thing to deal with. And Virgos, I don't know, I guess most human beings don't want to be alone. But I think what Virgo is actually really afraid of, because I think that everything that we're told about Virgo in astrology is a lie because astrology is written by Virgos. So they're like, oh, they're super neat and hardworking and goal oriented because that's who they would like to be and that's the traits that they admire. But in my experience, Virgos are usually very lazy, sloppy, lascivious. They like to talk and razzle dazzle as a distraction so they don't have to do any work. And that work may not necessarily be like plowing a field. They're the type to go to the gym and spend the entire time talking so they don't have to do a workout. They're the type to go to yoga with you and they keep talking so you don't actually do the class and don't reap the benefits. And so it's like since they're losers, now everybody within a 10-inch or whatever 3-foot radius is a loser now too because of having to listen to the sound of their pathetic voice. Because they have this deep-seated fear of like being alone, like Pisces, and they're like, oh well, Pisces doesn't have any friends, and it's like, well, you're the Five of Swords, you're surrounded by enemies, you don't have any friends either. It was actually so funny because I had this girl talk to me. She's like, oh, you give up on your friends, and I was like, you're insane if you think those people like you. Like, you're absolutely insane. Which she probably is, so whatever. And so I see what's going to help you is like being more like the Fool, being more of an Aquarius. So, there might be a King of Swords or Aquarius that you grew up admiring, and you might just need to be more like them, but also knowing that that comes from a certain like lifestyle and pattern. Like, you can't be so codependent on your mother's love and approval or this fear of being alone because, like, okay, so God forbid you're alone and then you have to write that book that you keep talking about. All the bullshit that you keep talking about, wanting to reconnect with your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, writing some bullshit book that nobody's going to read, designing your own video game, making a band, whatever stuff that you've been lying about for the past 5 years. If you're left alone, you would have to do it. Or if you've been scapegoating somebody, most likely some type of Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, and saying that they're the obstruction, they're the reason why my life isn't together, they're the reason why my house is dirty, X, Y, and Z, and they're no longer in your life, or they haven't been in your life for over a decade. It's like, no, the problem with your life is you. It's not anybody else. It's not this woman. It's not your mother. It's not your brother. It's not the cat down the road. It's the man in the mirror. And so the Fool is about like walking around and like listening to music, but I see it like specifically listening to music that's in your headphones. So the music that you play for everybody else around you for their approval, for the desperate act that they might be your friend, which they are not ever going to be your friend because they're not even their own friends. They do drugs and drink syrup and put things up their nose. They don't even like themselves. So to ask them to like you is absurd, right? How to attract absurdity in the month of August. It's just to be alone. Like, be alone. Just make your own kind of music. Do those TikTok dances that you kept saying that you were going to do and that you were going to discover and create choreography instead of stealing, which you have time to do now. Then I see the Hangman, which is like, I think you're going to be in a lot of like Pisces energy where you're like if you do take this advice, where you're going to be more perceived as like a creative Pisces, somebody who is actually doing the things that they said they were going to do. You might be jealous and upset over somebody and their spiritual channel, like, someone like Ralph Smart or something, who is growing and glowing and just exuberant with energy. And you might be sitting there calling him a fraud and, oh, well, he does this and he does that and he's not as good as he thinks he is. But at least he's doing something while you're sitting back on your couch as a couch potato doing nothing. Surrounded by a bunch of other people who are doing nothing. Which, once you get to this energy, it takes you to the Hangman, like to the crossroads where you get to make the decision. Do you want to be a dumb person for the rest of your life, or do you want to live a magical, spiritual life of existence of protection and miracles and amazing things happening to you every day? Like the Pisces that you'd be so jealous of. Or Cancer, or Scorpio, or whichever. Is that all I wanted to say? I think that's it. All right, well, thanks for watching. That's how to attract abundance in August for Virgo. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.